fucking tracks.
I was born there. I don't want to hear bullshit about how I was born in Chicago.
That's okay.
Be a Blackhawks fan.
That's perfectly fine.
Drafted Bedard. I'm sorry you hate, but that's the reality.
You know what the kids love though? The kids love United. They love United in Green.
They do love United in Green.
And so this is United in Green. This is season 1, episode 11, United in Green. Welcome. We have our returning players back from injured reserve list. We have tonight Tyler, the creator. How you doing, Tyler?
Hello, friends. I'm back. Better than ever, or about the same as ever, which isn't okay, I guess.
You're the okayest of the three of us.
Meets expectations of the world.
You're just a C student. There you are.
There you go.
Yep. And also we've been missing Will, so we've got Will back off a couple week hiatus. Meeting with the ownership group. He's got to be part of the supporters trust, right? Or something.
Look, I was really sick with personal responsibility, but I'm back now, so I'm ready to podcast.
Perfect. Let's get right into it then. We got a couple of games, boys. And one game was pretty fiery. The other game was a little pins and needles for a minute, wet again, but pins and needles to start, and but then just blew up. Will, you want to get us going with Connecticut? What are they? AC Connecticut?
They're AC Connecticut, which I can't stand. Make up your own style, but we don't know too much about this team. We played them once last year. It was a 6-4 away from home, kind of bizarre result. And honestly, we ended up with a pretty close result, 6-3. But it never really felt like it was outside of the boys' control. I think really the more fair result is 6-1, but we led in a few stoppage time goals, and that's the way it goes. But I think ultimately the takeaway from there is, we're strong with the rotation, and I think that even with some players rotating out that provided a lot of early season offense, we're really potent. We're looking great down the stretch, and I think that the game wasn't as close as the scoreline suggests.
Absolutely not. We had Tellez, with the brace. We had Zach Zenge getting back on the board, getting back into form. He had not necessarily been off form, but he hadn't been his early season self, for a few matches, and he got back into the swing of things, putting balls into the net. We had amazing performances out of who my son calls him, a Brazilian cheese, D'Agostini. That dude for me was one of the performers of the game. I mean, typical Brazilian. He's very dribbly, but he can put in a cross. He's fast. He's showy. He doesn't. He lets you know that he's going to be that way. He doesn't. He doesn't hold back on that kind of stuff. And I loved seeing Rodri, get involved too. I think, going forward, having as deep a bench as we have is a big deal. And having players who can just slot in when other players aren't available or when other players need rest, because all these guys need rest, right? I mean, it's I thought it was going to be kind of a roller coaster ride in the middle of the season here, but it's really not. I think I think we're, like Will said, we're going to come down the stretch. We're hitting that gas pedal and just pushing on, man. Tyler, what did you see, man? I'm sure you saw a lot of what we saw. Obviously, you're standing right next to us at the game, but
I had a slightly different view.
You might have some different perspective, though.
No, it was a great game. I feel like, again, the scoreline not reflective of the situation on the field throughout the game. It was again, another dominant Vermont Green performance. I will say it's worrisome that it's both worrisome and reassuring that the majority of our goals that we've let in have been sloppy mistakes and sort of garbage time goals. It's frustrating, but it's also we're not getting beat on a regular basis by solid attacks. I think the first goal was just an absolute rocket. The first AC Connecticut goal was just like from what I remember, top ends just like, well, that was a shot. Hats off to you, sir. But the response was fantastic, like putting 3 goals back the other way, or within the first half, and then just throughout the game, just keeping our foot on the gas to continue the car metaphor. And also just like, yeah, I mean, D'Agostini had a great game. He is such a threat as an individual, but also as like a decent crosser, strong crosser into the box, and just fun as hell to watch. I mean, like he's one of those players who he gets the ball and you're like, something's going to happen, right? He's got that sort of like, he is to Vermont Green what San Maximum is to Newcastle. You're like, he may not like finish the play, but he's going to do something amazing along the way. But yeah, great attacking, high scoring game. And goes without saying, hats off to Fede Tejas for giving up what really could have been a hat trick for a very nice feed to Nacho Larage for his goal. And yeah, great high scoring, fun game.
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in on D'Agostini because I'll be honest, I didn't really know much about him when he signed, but as soon as I watched him play, I was like, oh, this guy's really something because, when AC Connecticut went up on that screamer, I got to say, I was a bit nervous. We had dropped games to Pioneers, we dropped games to Seaport, and, I was just concerned that we went down to AC Connecticut. And yes, I said Seaport. And so I was concerned we went down to AC Connecticut. I was like, oh, this is getting a little hairy. At this point of the season, every game counts. But when that D'Agostini rocket went in on the far post shot, clanged off it, I think that was one of the most fervent and intense celebrations, and it was raining, so it was a lot of the hardcore supporters were the people there. I think that was one of the most frantic celebrations I've ever seen. That and it was to tie the game early in the game, but I think we were all feeling this sense of anxiety that our season was slipping away before us, and D'Agostini lasered it in. I was
and there was never any sense
it was
of
going
panic,
crazy,
right? There was no that goal came relatively quickly after the first goal, but even during that sort of gap, it didn't feel panicked, right? I mean, like Mike, did you get any sense of nerves or panic? It just kind of felt like, all right, guys, let's back at it, but there's no anxiety, right?
There was maybe a
From
minute
us.
or two, right after
fan anxiety.
Fan anxiety, right? Yeah.
There was for me, I sat there and I was like, okay, let's give it a second, see what happens after this, see how we respond. And I think the Green have done what they did, what they have done all season, which is kind of get back on the ball, dominate possession, play a little bit higher line than I'm normally comfortable with, seeing on defense. But it's the midfield dominance that allows the forwards to do what they do and to play the way that they play in this team. And I think we've mentioned a number of times. So the anxiety was there for me for probably a few minutes. I mean, till that D'Agostini strike. I mean, that was outrageous. And I think like Will said, the crowd, like you said, hardcore supporters, there are a lot of families there too who kind of brave the weather, and the people are really starting to catch on. I still get the who's Vermont Green, what is that, what is that shirt you're wearing? I still get that. Some people just don't know yet, or just don't know soccer. So, but I mean, the crowd, there was a lot of energy in the crowd, and goal after goal after goal, you felt it build and build and build. And for me, I think the fans that come to the games regularly, they know what we've got here, and this could be something very, very special. I mean, I think it's probably, when the power rankings come out, they're going to be probably in the top 10 next week.
I do check the USL2 power rankings oft. I think they messed it up 2 weeks ago. I have to see us place there this week. You look at the standings, it's outrageous. But to go back on your point is, I keep thinking about that first rain game we had last season, where it really only was, a select few that didn't know any better, compared to this season. And we filled the stadium up for a rainy day and a rainy game, and the atmosphere was incredible. And there's been a lot of talk about amongst the Vermont Green supporters this week about fan support on other teams, and I think that just it goes to show you that against AC Connecticut in the rain, we can really pack our stadium. And I think, especially for a team like AC Connecticut that doesn't see us that often, that makes a huge difference in the way our boys play and how the opposing team reacts to us.
It was really interesting. I don't, just a little inside Green Mountain Boys sort of info here and consideration, but I think it's interesting. I went down to grab a beer, I think, and ended up chatting with somebody at the start of the second half. And was down behind the stands. And usually when we're in the front, you can't really hear how many people are getting involved because we're not really facing backwards. And so we have at least I have a limited sense of how involved people are getting with our chanting and our yelling and our cheering. But somebody, must have been one of you guys, started a chant, and I could hear people all the way up to the top rows getting involved. And it was this really nice moment for me as a fan to hear the entirety of the South End section really getting involved and being like, oh yeah, people are catching on sort of within our own fan group, and certainly catching on within the state. And one anecdotal story, a friend of mine went to a Red Bulls game last week and I had sent him a make a noise with the boy shirt, so he's wearing that. His son was wearing his kids Green Mountain Vermont Green kit, and some guy stopped in the parking lot. I was like, oh man, I love Vermont Green. They're such an awesome cult. They have such an awesome cult following, such a cool team, just out of nowhere. He knew them. And so I feel like those sort of things, locally where there's a good momentum and obviously a lot of interest on the radio stream from the game, or the last game, which we'll get to in a moment. People were listening from New Zealand, from Liverpool. Terry was in Scotland. It's
Scotland.
just, there's just, the range of support is, I think, hard to measure or document sometimes, but it's there, and it's really cool to see it sort of pop up in funny ways.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we do have a pretty energetic supporters group, but I think that we mentioned last week about Jason running up and down the stands, getting all the crowd involved, and I think that by the end of the season, you're going to hear the rest of the crowd getting involved too, because what the things that we try to do is infect a little bit at a time the crowd and move it down to the other side, to the north end, so that everybody's involved, and that's what we want. And I got to tell you, man, I bet the energy is just as high at that other end at points, as it is on our end. So yeah, and I had kind of the same experience, when I went underneath and hearing the crowd, because it was really kind of the first time this year that I've heard the crowd get really, really, really loud. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was in the bathroom when the second Zengi goal went in, and you couldn't tell that the stadium wasn't full. These fans are passionate, they're wild, and we're talking about organic football growth, and Tyler running into people at other large events, knowing who we are. And it's the potential is there. I mean, we're less than 2 years into organic football growth, and we already have such a passionate fan base. And what I would say to anybody that's listening to this right now is that if you are not a member of our Slack chat with the Green Mountain Boys, you should join right now, because it is active and it is intense. Poppy and Tyler and I got in a fight today about Arsenal transfers. You should get onto this, because at the end of the day, we're all Vermont Green fans. We're also passionate football fans that need outlet to express our emotion and our excitement, our anger, our frustration, and everybody in the fan base is so welcoming. And you should get in on this, because the Slack chat is, I look at it every day. It is such a passionate fan base in such a short amount of time, that if you're a Vermonter and you're a football fan, you owe it to yourself to be in the part of this group. Yeah, honestly. And I'm sure these guys will say the exact same thing. I mean, this is what American football fandom is. is begging for, is this sort of community, especially Vermonters. Like, this has made my fucking 2 years. Being a Vermont Green, and a mountain boy, I mean, it's everything, if you're a football fan.
It's a really good community, and it's been a source of some amazing friendships and just connections and all these positive things. And again, yeah, to see a club that's a year and a half into its existence basically have like a national/international recognition and a super passionate fan base and packed games even on rainy days is amazing. But on the flip side, let's talk about a club with apparently no fan base, no stream.
You're talking about Seaport?
It's Coastport, I believe.
Coastport, got it.
Coastport game.
The Sea Goats United.
Sea Ghosts? I'm not sure I know this team.
Space Coast to Ghost. Is that the
Goats or Ghost? Anyway,
listen, I wanted to say,
I know they play not. It can't be the coast or the port because they don't play near water.
It's all very confusing.
It's like 45 minutes from water.
The Sea Lads United. But listen, I just want to say that in the game of football, opposing fans chirping you is a reality. And when the other team decides that they're just going to block everyone that chirps them, in a community as small as USL2, I think that is the wrong choice. And I'll leave it to you boys to follow up on that. But I just don't think that Seaport is used to attention or social media any kind and has reacted poorly to our intense attention to them.
Yeah. So for the backstory there's a little bit of chirping about the lack of a stream sort of leading up to the game, all done in generally good humor and generally. Yeah, it was the same sort of criticism that we level at I think pretty much all the clubs. Where's the stream is the general gist of it. As we've pointed out many times over, it's not hard to have a stream. Having a wider broadcast for your team and all the teams in your division in your league benefits you, benefits like your players. It's just a simple and good thing to do. So that was the origin of our latest efforts. But again, I think this gets back to something we've talked about many times over, which is that this club, Vermont Green, is exceptionally well run, and unlike almost any other club in USL2, there are again a few exceptions, and I'm sure I'm biased because I've done some design work for them and seen how like Minneapolis SC and Ballard sort of do things, and they have passionate fans, they have great social media presence, they have streams, but it's really Vermont Green's a special club within our division, and my hope is that between a little bit of carrot, a little bit of stick, we can sort of prompt other clubs to follow suit and be like, hey, like produce a stream, keep people updated, make this like a good division for players to be in and for teams to compete in. And I would love for every team to look and sound as good as we do. Let's talk about the radio broadcast and how awesome Brian is.
I just want to follow up and say, do you guys remember if there were streams last year?
Yes,
there were a couple. Yeah.
In fact, there were streams this year. And I gotta.
We had a stream opening game against Boston
City. And
yes, but I have to apologize. I couldn't tell you, for honest, if that was us or if it was the opposing team.
It was the opposing team, and it wasn't great. And I think we had the same thing with Boston Bulls and Boston City last year. I kind of ragged on them a little bit for their shitty cell phone, stream. But at the same time, guess what? It was a shitty cell phone stream. Western Mass Pioneers does streams with 11 Sports. So I mean, it's not hard to do. This is 2023. We're sitting there and we're chirping them, and it's kind of lighthearted, fun chirping. There wasn't anything disrespectful or mean, or the thing about it is that we're trying to create an action, in order to get clubs to understand that people want to see them, and the easiest way to see them play and to grow your fan base is to make them visible.
Yeah.
Whether it's doing social media stuff, which is pretty easy. I mean, you know, I'm a Gen Xer. I've kind of figured out Instagram a little bit, and not great, but I'm okay at it.
Nice job, Grandpa.
Thank you. It's so easy to do, and those tripods don't cost a lot of money. I got one for my daughter for Christmas, and she plays with it all the time. You could follow a game. You don't even have to have commentary. Now we could talk about Brian. I think Brian is not always given the credit that he deserves. You know, we give our plaudits to Tommy because he's out there, he's at the games, he's shouting out fun things, he's getting the crowd involved. You know, overall good dude. Brian doesn't get a lot of those same plaudits because he's kind of behind the scenes, giving the view to the folks that are not able to be at the matches.
He does have that iconic voice, though. That is,
he has got an amazing,
very recognizable. I mean, you know, the man's voice is electric.
You'll hear him at the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah, I'm frustrated because I share the same sentiments with you guys. Is like, how hard is it to do a stream? And the reason I'm more frustrated is not generally because I don't get to watch the boys beat these teams, because hey, we know where they're gonna. But the fact is, it doesn't grow the league.
Yeah.
There's a fan base out there just as rabid as us in New Hampshire, in Boston, in Western Mass, that would watch these games if they weren't, you know, able to go to the games. You know, they'd watch these away streams. We don't know what kind of benefit our away streams are doing for these fan bases that, you know, are playing against us. And I feel like the benefit outweighs the harm of spending the cost to stream these things. I mean, I'm willing to watch a shitty iPhone stream.
It's like a nominal cost. We're not talking about anything more than $700.
Exactly. And I feel like it taps into a fan base that isn't properly served, especially in New England, where we have the Revs. And if you don't like the Revs, that's it. You know, but if we were able to stream these games, all of a sudden you've got Western Mass fans, you've got New England fans, you've got Maine fans. I mean, you've got all these people that could be tapped and could help to grow the league. And I think we've seen a lot of negative reaction this week, specifically with Seacoast, because, you know, either they don't want to do it or they just don't like Vermont Green fans. I mean, they're both equally possible, but you know, what are your guys? I think we should broach the elephant in the room. I think there's been a lot of negative chatter with Seacoast FC's social media versus Mountain Boys fans in general. And I'm wondering what your guys' take is on that.
I honestly believe, Will, that, you know, it kind of started for, I think, for us in the Slack, in Slack, in case you guys are wondering. Yes, our sponsorship for social media chat apps is still open, so you can jump in there anytime you want. But on our Slack, somebody had mentioned that Western Mass Pioneers, when they played them earlier in the week, had been calling them Seaport in all of their updates. So I think that kind of caught on with us. We started asking them if there was going to be a stream. No answer on social media. So we just everybody started chirping at them a little bit to try and get them to maybe react or give us at least an answer. And we got nothing. So I think.
And when you say nothing, did you get a response? Did you get anything?
I got no response. No.
Before this, folks had reached out to ask about a stream, and there was no response, which is, you know, look, I think all this, in terms of like the fan base, the social media stuff, the streaming, the marketing materials, the look and feel of teams, all of it ties back to how each club is run and what their mission is and where they make money. And I don't think there's any other club in our division that has the mission that Vermont Green does. And I mean this in like mission in like the big world sense of like doing good and through a variety of different channels for a variety of different causes. But But if you're one of these other clubs, I think a lot of times their focus is solely on revenue from youth programs and camps and that sort of stuff. So the USL2 team is sometimes like an afterthought. This is my outside observation sort of guess. And so there's isn't the awareness or the interest in promoting the USL2 aspect of their organization. But again, like a massive lost source of outreach, of interest, of bringing in players. I mean, if you're a college player and you want to stay in the Northeast or New England, and you look at the clubs around you, like, man, like it seems like it's just a painfully easy choice if you're looking at any of the clubs versus Vermont Green in terms of like what they're doing on and off the field. And so again, like I feel like, I don't know how these clubs are run individually, but my general sense is that it's very much a youth program revenue focused operation. USL2 team is an afterthought, and that includes everything from streams to the logo to social media stuff. So it's going to be a point of friction for I'm assuming that at least another year or two. I don't think any of these clubs are making sudden about faces in terms of what they're going to do. I think if we can continue to put pressure on folks and USL2 to make, something like streaming like a requirement, great. And I also think, just division wise and sport wise, having a rivalry is good. And that means sort of some back and forth. And in the same way that like I get amped up for Liverpool facing Man United, like I want Seacoast and Vermont Green to be like well-matched, intense rivals. That's good for the league. It's good for the game. It's good for the fans. So yeah, the chirping will continue until morale improves.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely prefer Seacoast United's official Twitter to flame us than to block us, because we've used Seacoast and Western Mass as our top contenders fairly. And I guess it's just a little disappointing that the response of Seacoast is to block our more ardent supporters, especially where nothing they've posted has been especially controversy. It's just a little disappointing. But I think, Vermont Green, the USL2 has been around for a long time. And I think that we're disruptors. I think that we're a threat to how USL2 has been carried out before. I don't think there's been, especially in New England, a serious fan base like we've had before. And I think that it's threatening to teams like USL, like to Seacoast and Mass, that we're here. We've got a massively improved team from last year, and we're coming for your spot. So, I think that part of it may be the fear that, Seacoast may need to up its recruitment game, because I struggle to believe that there's any team in our division that's offering a better package for summer football than we are. Is even Seacoast with its pedigree. Fair dues to Seacoast. They've been at it a lot longer than we have. But I think when you look at the last 2 years, I think they have to feel threatened. And I'm sure their social media person has not been prepared for crazed fans to start tweeting negative things at them.
Yeah. Let's talk about the game.
Yeah, let's get into that, because we had two amazing goals from Yana Bazzini again. It just seems, what's that? 5 goals in 3 games?
5 and 3.
I mean, the man's a monster, right? He's big. He plays that traditional number 9, plays hold up play in the box. He heads the ball very well. Gets underneath balls on crosses and corners. But he's also there to sweep up, right? He's kind of plays a little bit of a sweeper role too. The goal that he scored against the Sea Hags was the first goal was off a Zengue shot. It was a rebound off a Zengue shot that he kind of swept up and put in. And that kind of set the tone. Like, the game had been, for me, listening, it had been kind of bouncing around, uncomfortable for the green. until that goal. The possession had bounced around a little bit. Once we scored that goal, I think the tables started to turn, and Vermont started to settle down, play into the game, take advantage of the Phantoms high line, and that really showed. There are a lot of excellent chances, you know, and I don't know that Seacoast was ever really in it until the very end of the game when they had to be. The second goal was off a corner kick, a header from a corner kick. Also beautiful. We just have so many people that are in this squad that are contributing without actually being major goal scorers, which you don't really see that often in teams that have one or two guys that are scoring all the goals. You don't see a lot of other big contributors. Everybody is contributing, from like Musa and Nate in the back holding court in the back, to the midfield, to the fellows up front, whoever's playing, whether it's Nacho or Fede or Bazzini, playing up front. You have Zach Zenge playing kind of that number 10, distributing the ball, and Bilal Kamal. Like, we have an embarrassment of riches with this club, and I think that it really showed in the last two games for us, like how our depth is a major contributing factor to the success of this club.
Yeah, listening to the broadcast, which again, I mean, shout out to Brian for doing 90 minutes solo and just creating like a really compelling stream of a game. Like, that was just fantastic, man. So thank you. But listening to that, like, you could just tell that, like you said, like Musa and Nate Jones in the back were winning almost every long ball, and Probo and Pacella in the center of the field were running the show there, and Zenge was creating a bunch of chances and was a threat. Bilal didn't have a goal, but was a threat, had a bunch of chances. And so you have that much sort of consistency in the back and movement in the front and lane on the other side. And then sort of like the wings were shut down really nicely. Like, everything was clicking. And again, there were players who could have been swapped in and out who would have fit into the system really nicely. But like, just having that solidity in the back and just dynamism in the front is just, it's terrifying. Must be terrifying to be the other team and be like, every long ball is going to get cut out or second ball is going to get picked up, and then we're susceptible to counter because there's just so much pace and skill coming back the other way. And I loved Zach creating that first goal basically by like getting the shot off and leaving it dumped out for Bazzini. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see how the team has evolved and changed as players have sort of been brought in and how they've combined with existing players or new players, and just sort of like all the different combinations. And no matter what team is starting, I'm excited because there's just a no shortage of like talent and excitement on that squad.
And I just want to shout out really quick, because we've had a lot of defensive formations, but I feel like there is one person that is always in every formation we play, and that's Musa Ndai. I mean, This man is incredible. He's a left back prospect for Anderlecht. He's slotted into almost every position in the back line. He's quickly had one of the best chances I've ever heard in the Vermont Green. He's played right back, he's played left back, he's played center back, he's played defensive midfield. I mean, the man is incredible. And I just want fans to know that this is his first season and he's just been lights out since the day he started.
First of many, I hope, but
he at the risk of jinxing things. I don't typically believe in jinxes or luck. I think we make our own luck. People make their own luck, but at the risk of jinxing anything, I don't think the guys really put a foot wrong all season. And I think that's very telling too. I mean, a player who's their first season in competitive USL pre-professional soccer, he's kind of unflappable. He seems super confident. I mean, I see that Nate Jones too, but Musa's like confidence And the way, like you said, Will, he just slots kind of into any position. He was playing midfield earlier in the season. And like you
Well,
said,
the way he was introduced to us was as a defensive midfielder.
right.
So we had a lot of conversations internally about where is this guy slot in? Is he midfield? Is he a defender? And he hasn't really played that position since. And it's like,
I think it's a little bit having to do with like the fact that he played one game in place of Zach Barrett and kind of like transformed everything.
Yeah. He is a nailed on. He may be like 1, 2, 3 on the team sheet. The man just slots in, I think it's the important part. But
yeah, and I just enjoy watching him play. He's pretty graceful for a big man. And just like Nate too. Like we have another embarrassment of riches and at center back. Like we have guys whose body positioning, whose ability to be big men and carry the ball and be confident on the ball, as well as being great like ball playing center backs too. Like it's pretty amazing to watch that. Like for a second season, we don't have to worry about who's going to show up in defense. Now we got like for a second season, we have like you said, nailed on starters right there, team sheet guys who are just able to walk right in.
And I'll say his name is Nate Jones, but the fact is how good they are on the ball. There is a bit of exposure because we did let in 3 goals against AC Connecticut, and we did let a goal in against Seaport. But the offensive element of these guys and their ball playing ability, I mean, it whizzes out from the center back line to our forwards. I mean, it's hard to describe how quickly the ball moves out of play from these guys. So like the defensive exposure is totally worth the offensive element these guys offer, while being super commanding in the air, which is a huge attacking style in USL2.
And I think the goals that we gave up in the AC Connecticut game and at the end of the Port House game were like goals that were given up when things were pretty well in hand, and obviously a little more tension in the the Sea Cats game because it was stoppage time and it was a 1 goal difference. But those are okay. Like they're not, you don't want to give up goals ever, but if you're gonna give up goals, do it when you have a 5-1 lead, when you're up 2-0 in the final 2 or 3 minutes of the game. That's slightly better than than at any other point. But I think we need to pause and just sort of acknowledge how big of a win this was. First time Vermont Green has beaten
the Sea Dogs.
The Sea Dogs, and it's at their, I use this term loosely, stadium.
Loosely. You use that loosely?
It's a huge win. And I think I wonder what the sort of like psychological benefit for the club is, because I feel like that was sort of like one of those sort of things, those bogeys that you carry, you're like, yeah, we still haven't beaten them, and that's been cleared away. So guys, your take on that win, where it's sort of like, how does that reset the mentality at the club? And also just, looking at the table, assuming Seacoast wins their next game, we're 2 points up on them, 3 points up on Western Mass, 4 games left. We got to be feeling pretty good, right? I mean, this is, had you given us this option at the start of the season to be, sitting where we are with 4 games left, I think all of us would have taken that in a heartbeat.
We have the harder of the schedules going down. I think Western Mass has it in their back pocket. So I mean, they have 2 games against Boston City. No, 1 game against Boston City, and then they get to play Black Rock twice, as well as Vermont Green. We have to play Western Mass. We got to play Pathfinder. We play Black Rock, and we play Boston City. So,
right. I mean, we're against Black Rock next, and then Pioneers. So I think we'll know pretty certainly how our season's going. So I think obviously Pioneers is the tough game, but I think the rest of the games are obviously, games
right.
Win.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it comes down to Western Mass. So I mean, we're a lot stronger than we were at the start of the season, which is surprising given the players we have lost along the way. But I think that the style is a lot stronger than it was at the start of the season. So,
yeah, I agree. And looking forward to, the Seagrass has a game in hand still, and they still have to, and they still have to make up those other 2 points on top of that. So, I mean, Vermont Green in the driver's seat for the rest of the season here. It's a matter of what's going to happen against Western Mass Pioneers. I mean, hold Western Mass Pioneers off, and make sure that Seaglass doesn't go ahead and take that game in hand, and we have a screw up, because if we don't have a screw up somewhere or a trip along the way and let them in, I think Vermont Green waltzes to the title in the division. That said, nothing is a given in this league. Nothing is a given in any league, really. So, I mean, anything can happen. Crazy shit can happen.
And look, Seaglass still have to play AC Connecticut, which have proven to be a dangerous team to teams that's not expecting them to win. So I do think there's still risk in their schedule. I think there's, the bigger risk for us is Western Mass, but I think that it's definitely there for us. And so I think that without getting, too big for our britches, I think the next step is preparing for the potential teams in the playoffs. So, we have, if we're lucky, teams we have to think about are Long Island. So, I think there's a lot left to play for here, but I think that we've set ourselves up for a strong position in the playoffs.
Yeah. Teams like Long Island, Chicago City, those teams are going to be tough.
Even just thinking about last year, where came down to the final game of the season, to be sitting where we are now is a massive improvement. The potential to win the division as opposed to squeak in as a 3 seed, a huge improvement. And it's I think it's worth thinking about where the club has come even in the past, from season 1 to season 2, and being like, this is massive, man. This is like a continuation and an improvement without losing any of the stuff that we love about the club and the game day experience. It's been like a big jump up in terms of the quality and the results. And it's going to be a fun finish to the race to the finish here.
All righty. Well, I think that's going to end it for us tonight. We did go a little over what we normally do, but there were some things that we actually just absolutely had to talk about. We got some stuff off our chest. We didn't get into any kind of a crazy argument about our professional league teams. But I mean, here we are.
Who wins that argument? But I'll stop there. So anyway.
4 league games left for Vermont Green, 2 home, 2 away. So, we got a big one coming up on Sunday. Hopefully not in the rain. Hopefully the rain holds off for us.
Yeah.
At least for one of these home games, we get the big crowd out there, get the drums beating, get the chants going, and move on with our season. Any final thoughts from you guys?
Up the green.
Same as always, up the green, up the green.
All right, boys. Well, that's been it for United in Green tonight. Join us next week, probably same bat time, same bat channel. We can have fan questions, and we can have maybe some more fun, with the dirt dogs or the sea wenches or whatever we want to call them.
It's the sea cucumbers. Can we please get it right?